Okay, so I did a video about um, Adam and Eve being kicked out of the garden because I was trying to think about where on the earth would Eden be, the Garden of Eden be, and the clues to where it might be would be, well, people try to use geology and that doesn't really work when the whole earth was reformed after the surface of the earth changed after the flood, because there's water under the earth. Water came up to water the earth. I don't think it rained. It says that the water came up from underneath it. It says there was a dome, which was a ring over the earth. It's like a rainbow. You only see the bow, the part over you. But if the earth wasn't standing under you, you would see a complete ring that when you see a rainbow. So, and like for Saturn, the water is all around the earth and it's concentrated in the middle and it forms a ring. So it's not just at the ring, it's around the whole planet, but because the magnetosphere, it's concentrated around the middle. Plus the spin of the earth also affects the planet. So anyway, so when I looked at the verse, and I looked up in the original Hebrew, and I looked up the meaning of the word, because it said there was like a fiery sword pointing all directions. They were put out of the garden to the east, and there was creatures put there, and they were there to prevent people from going to the tree of life. So it might have just been the small little area around the flaming sword pointing all directions, which must have been the Northern Lights, because it does that. That is something that looks like a flaming sword pointing all directions. And since the earth had a perfect temperate atmosphere all over it, then up there at the North Pole is where the Garden of Eden could have been. And with the ring system around the earth and all the moisture around the earth and the higher pressure on the surface of the earth, causing plants and animals to grow bigger and more healthy, it could have affected the aurora borealis, or the northern lights, so that it was smaller and more intense. So it might have just gone around the garden itself, which sounds like what it was, but mostly to protect the one tree. The garden could have been the whole North Pole area, which wasn't under ice at the time, or it could have been smaller because the atmosphere was different. But I am pretty sure that the northern lights are the flaming sword shining in all directions. But the question is, what were the creatures? So I looked that up in the Hebrew, and it doesn't give a good definition. I even looked further up, did some more research, and in that verse, the first mention of those creatures in the Bible that I recall, the cherubim being more than one. So it was more than one. It says creatures. It doesn't say how many, it just says creatures. It didn't say it was two, although people generally put two down. It just says creatures. So what I found researching that verse is, the word cherubim, in this first mention of it, it's undefined. It doesn't say that it was something appearing as a creature, or it was an actual creature, It just says it doesn't even say that it could have been the animals from the garden that were put out on that side, and they just stayed there to guard the Garden of Eden to keep people out. It just says creatures, and it says undefined, but later in the Bible, we have similar mentions, especially during the construction of the temple. And we also have some degree of descriptions, like on the Ark of the Covenant, those are supposed to be cherubs also. So we got these amazing creatures. One of these is actually something my dad built. I was doing a Google search for cherubim, and I was like, wait a minute, that one I recognized, and it was a sculpture my dad had done for Ark of the Covenant that's in the church that he established. So, but you get all of these, like here, for example, is what they may have looked like in the Temple of Solomon, right? Solomon's temple. So there's how a human looks, and that's how big there were in Solomon's temple. So it's got a human head, animal body, and wings. Apparently, this is how they were standing around the Ark of the Covenant. So and you can find this in 1 Kings 6, verse 23 through 28, or 2 Chronicles 3, 10 to 13.
You need to see some photos.
Don't get in the image because we don't need people to see you. Right, because there's bad people on the internet and they don't need to know who you are.
Yes.
So,
you need to see some photos from how a black hole forms.
Yeah. And here is another version of an angel with three sets of wings and a human face in the middle. But angels often are just something that appears. Sometimes it's something that appears and speaks, like to Mary when she got pregnant with Christ.
You need to see some photos how black hole forms.
I'm not doing a black hole form right now. I'm doing cherubim. I'm doing angels. So this is cherubim angel. So this is a cherubim angel with a human face, a lion face, an ox, and an eagle's probably on the back. So this is how they appeared in some cases, or they were told. I think that's in Revelation. Where is it? It doesn't say. But the way sometimes it's an appearance, and if it's just an appearance of something that, like the first mention, this is creatures, it might have just been things appearing in the aurora borealis and the flaming sword towards the side of the sunrise, right? Because it's on the east, which the earth is always turning. So did it follow the rotation of the earth? If it was up at the North Pole, it could still even have the flaming sword pointing all directions, or there could just be something with the magnetosphere that causes it to be on one side that stays there as the east side of the garden spins around the earth. I don't know. These are just questions. Like the Bible just says so much because it's pretty much an abridged story. You know, it's like gives a lot of information on one little verse, and a lot of people. You have to figure it out. Like here's another version of a cherubim. Cherub is singular. Cherubim is plural. So there's another vision with wings. It's a man's body and rings going around it. I mean, we didn't see it. This is how it was described, and it's really hard to visualize something like this, you know. So whoever saw that tried to communicate what they saw. That is definitely not a cherubim. I mean, this is one with like eyes down his front, human face, oxen, lion, and the eagle should be on the back, and it's got this many wings. I mean, as we didn't see it, we just were just explaining what it looked like. You know, it's like we'll find out one day. Well, most of us will see, you know, when we either get to heaven or we get to Judgment Day and see God face to face. We'll see what it actually looked like, because these are cherubim. There's also a teraphim, I think is what Lucifer was supposed to be, and he's got like, according to the verse, got like pipes built into his body. I have a book somewhere maybe, of angels, and it's like, it was mostly Catholic mythology about angels. And I know it's mythology because it wasn't based on the Bible or any ancient text. It was just all kinds of names for different angels that, like, there's never a mention of Lilith in the Bible. That's just some lore that was built to say Lucifer had a wife or something, and that's just, Lucifer is an angel. Christ said, when you're heavenly beings, do not marry or give in marriage. So any idea that when you get to heaven, you're still going to be married, or if angels are married or angels marry anyone or have sex, that is just not correct, because Jesus himself said that's not how it works. Because people try to trip him up with a theology debate, and he's like, you guys don't even know what you're talking about. And he told them, like, when we get to heaven, we'll be like the angels. You don't marry or give in marriage. That's not how it works. But anyway, I just wanted to address the verse saying creatures. The first mention of it, it doesn't specify if it was just an appearance of creature. It just says creatures. But that word, cherubim, the first mention of it, it's not clearly defined to English. I did some more research on the Hebrew word, but the thing about learning a language is you can't always get it from a translation book somewhere, because especially in this case, some words just don't translate very well or at all. Like in Germany, there's two words I can think off the top of my head, like Feierabend and Doch. These words don't translate into English. Feierabend just means the end of your work shift, the end of your work day. Work is over. And Doch is a harder word to explain. It either gives something a little more oomph, or it contradicts something, you know? So you can like, if somebody says, I think he likes you, and you say, doch, that means no, they don't. And, or you could say, I want to do, you really want to do this, and you say, doch nicht, that means really don't want to do this, you know? So, the word cherub, or cherubim, is also a difficult word like that, because from what we get from the Hebrew, it said, the definition had said undefined, so like, what does that even mean? So if it's like supposed to be two creatures guarding somewhere, or more than one creature, it doesn't say two, it just says creatures as in plural, so at least two. Then if it's undefined what that is, it could just be something appearing as creatures. It could be the creatures coming out of the garden, but it uses the term cherub, which later, or cherubim, which later appears well, later we have what is this? Here's another possible image. These are all kind of bizarro sometimes. But it's like, you're seeing a supernatural thing. Like, people have seen a supernatural thing. And like, as there's a first dimension, second dimension, third dimension, and then fourth dimension being where, well, actually we're technically in fourth dimension because we have time, space, matter, and time. It's like time, space, matter. Anyway, so supernatural being like, if there was a universe that was flat, right? And I wanted to interact with these people in these universe who are two-dimensional. If I was like to touch their universe, I would appear as 5 people. And I could move around like through houses and doors, or I could just disappear and reappear somewhere else. You know, they don't know what the whole me looks like. In the same way, when supernatural beings like God or angels interact with our plane of reality, then we're only going to see part of everything. So it'll be something that appears as something, but that's not all of it. You know, that's just what we see from our reality, our realm, for how we can perceive things. Some people in the process of dying, like Stephen when he was being stoned by people, and Paul was holding the robes of those people killing him, he saw Christ standing at the right hand of God the Father. So he had a vision to the supernatural realm where he was about to go. Does that mean that there's a physical being standing there? No. That means as he could perceive things in his natural body and mind, that's what it looked like. That's what he was seeing that, but that's how it appeared to him at the time. So, I don't know, this is just a difficult concept to explain. Here's another version of a cherubim, believe it or not. It's a cherubim. It's a Syrian. Right? So is that Iran, Iraq? It's actually kind of olive, that sort of region. So, anyway, just still researching the topic. There's... That's kind of interesting version. So it's a human face. It doesn't look entirely human. Looks kind of also animal. The ox face, the lion face, the eagle. Got a cross behind his head like a halo. And 1, 2, I don't know, 3. There's also wings coming off its horse body. It's got like lizard paws and horse paws and tail of it. And it's got eyes along its back. That's interesting. So anyway, if the Garden of Eden was guarded by angels, like these creatures, would they still be there today? If the flaming sword going and pointing all directions is, then maybe they are. So if it wasn't just as they appeared in the moving of the you know, like you can look in a cloud and see animals and shapes. You can look at the stars and sometimes see shapes and animals, creatures. Was it just how it appeared, or was it the actual beings? And if so, the Bible never says they stopped guarding the tree of life. So, as far as we know, they can still be there. If they are only what appeared in the flaming sword, you know, like the Northern Lights, then it's still there. Or it's still there somewhere under the ground where the tree of life is buried. I mean, we don't know. We don't know if it's even necessary to guard the tree of life anymore because it's probably destroyed with the flood. But I'm not coming up with these questions to for likes and shares. This is just something that interests me, and it's biblical, and it might prove evidence the Bible is true if, in fact, the Northern Lights are the flaming sword pointing all directions, and then the Garden of Eden was up there where now is the North Pole. This is kind of a cool illustration of it's got its head's floating around the shining glory, which looks like flame. It's got a sword in his hand that can be pointing all directions. Eyes everywhere, multiple wings. I mean, it says Ezekiel 1:5-11. It also has a verse here. It's kind of a cool poster. I would like to have that. So, but anyway, so it's 20 minutes of me talking about cherubim, because I don't know, and the Bible doesn't really say if those cherubim weren't just an apparition, something that appeared, or if it was actual creatures that were entities like angels, or if it was animals from the Garden of Eden. But that word cherubim it doesn't specify if it's an apparition, like something that appears, or if it was an entity. It just says creatures. So we're kind of assuming that it's entities, and later on in the future, when the Bible when there's when they've appeared or they're told to be made into sculptures for the temple, there's more description given. So there's wings, there's eyes in the wings. It's like a human face with ears. It's something like Japanese art. But anyway, I'm still going to research it until I'm satisfied with the answer. I'm satisfied that the Northern Lights is the flaming sword going in a circle, trying to keep people away from the Tree of Life. But I'm not really satisfied with whether or not the creatures placed to protect the Tree of Life were just an appearing something that appeared to humans and we were scared of it, or if it was an actual creature, an entity. I don't know. I am leaning towards it just being something that appeared with the Northern Lights, flaming sword going in all directions, because it does do all kinds of shapes. And if it was on the east side, maybe something caused those shapes to intensify into a certain form. Or maybe a supernatural being or two were standing there and appearing. So the word cherubim in that context is unspecified. It doesn't say it's... What did it say? It says imaginary creature also for that word. So if that is correctly translated, or if it's not just calling angels in general imaginary creatures, if it's correctly translated to imaginary creature for cherubim in the first mention of cherubim, then it could be that it was appearing to in the Northern Lights, and people's imagination just kind of made it to look like the creature like this or whatever the cherubim were supposed to be. So anyway, I think I've definitely exhausted this topic, and if people watch this video this long, cool.